Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to speak to you from Shanghai. As you can tell, I'm stuck in Shanghai, and many people, many of you are stuck in Hong Kong. That says a lot about what's going on this year. It's been a very eventful year. And certainly nobody imagined that the pandemic would be so pervasive and disruptive. I included in January, I was thinking about, when I got the word of a pandemic, I was thinking about running away to somewhere warm and sunny. Now it turned out to be a good decision to stay put. And this thing has been going on, and Europe is still, a lot of cities have lockdowns. The United States is talking about 4 to 6 weeks of lockdown again. So that is very difficult for everybody. But on the other hand, you know, that the stock market capitalization just made a new high. So what's going on? So we have it's the global economy down by about 5%. And next year doesn't appear to be a strong year either. Why the asset markets are so buoyant? So I think this is the story that I've been writing about for a long time. I think that despite all these shocks, we have seen the Trump came with a lot of shocks, and then with the pandemic and so forth. These shocks are kind of symptoms. They really kind of warning you about something more fundamental. I've been talking about the global economy adjusting around China since China joined the WTO in 2000. Initially, the argument was based on the quantity of labor and the low price. So the quantity would overwhelm the global economy, and China had this peculiar economic development model of outsourcing. So the supply chains were cut into little pieces and being shipped into China. After 20 years, a lot of the supply chains are entirely in China. So this is the initial story, and that story has been quite dramatic. China's exports, you probably know, are $2.5 trillion. And if you look at the value they have replaced, because everything coming to China becomes cheaper, probably twice or even 3 times as much, which is what I calculated many years ago, about three times. That is equivalent to like half of the manufacturing value outside of China. So obviously that has been a huge shock to the world. Then in the last few years, we have seen that China has defied the expectation and started talking about the China model. So 20 years ago, when China joined the WTO, the expectation of the West, as well as in other countries, was that China, through economic development, would become more liberal, like South Korea and so forth. I think that in the last few years, Beijing has told the world that this is not the case. It's not happening. So that is another shock. These 2 shocks are now causing this backlash against many things that are happening here. So I think that this is the most fundamental story, and the shocks all these events we're seeing, they are like tremors before a big earthquake. Okay, the earthquake is how China and the world will live together, and we don't know where it's going to land. So it probably will take many years. It's not just what the U.S. and its allies are doing. China is taking countermeasures. So this thing could seesaw for many years to come, impacting the macro growth as well as supply chains. And companies or businesses and investors have to watch this story really, really carefully. First, I want to talk a little bit about what makes people feel better. Now, Joe Biden just got elected, and Pfizer announced the vaccine. It seems like these elements will send us back to the past, like before 2016, when the world was calmer. I think that there's a little bit of truth to that, but probably not 100%. I would say 20-30% is possible. Biden is a known quantity. He has been around for decades. He's not known for strong views or for being impulsive in taking decisions. So that is a big departure from what Trump was doing. What Trump did was creating this psychological impact. Inside China, people didn't know what would happen tomorrow. And for China's system, it was hard to deal with something like that. So it's been quite destabilizing. And Biden has said that he would talk to the allies in terms of how to deal with China. And that means that the process will be quite long and well televised. So we would be ready for what's to come. And also that there are other elements involved that may precede the U.S.-China relationship. And as we know that the United States is a continental-sized economy. It focuses on domestic issues first. And the Biden, even though he has campaigned as a centrist, but the Democratic Party has shifted considerably to the left. Okay, so we're talking about $15 minimum wage, Medicare for all, rolling back the Trump tax cut, maybe millionaire tax, maybe wealth tax, maybe the new Green Deal. Those are things that are really very, very big and not easy to push through. And at this point, it looks like the Republican Party may control the Senate. If that is the case, I'm not sure that the Biden administration can do anything at all. And I think that it's like I suspect that only a few things can be done, like the antitrust against big tech companies, for example, because that both Republicans and Democrats agree on that. And the Trump tax cut may end because the Congress could just decide not to roll it over. So a couple of things may happen, but not much. So now we know Republicans and Democrats not agree on China. So for China, it's like a long time ago, China was largely a value issue. It's like how to force China to abide by the Western human rights standards, and a lot of talks back and forth on that. Now we're seeing a new element that's a power struggle, and the value and the power they become intermingled, and so makes the situation kind of more explosive. So the Republicans that were not so worried about value issues, now they're very concerned about the power struggle. The Democrats historically have been always concerned about a value issue. So they're coming together. So there is a possibility that the Democrats and Republicans may focus on China because they cannot agree much on the domestic reform issues. So it is possible that the tension will come back reasonably soon, maybe in 6 months, by the middle of next year. But definitely there are there's good news out there. One is that Biden has said that the tariff war hurts American consumers. So it appears that tariffs may be rolled back. And maybe through like companies applying for exemptions. So even though if they no big announcement, but a lot of tariffs may be rolled back. What I see is that the tech war, the tech war will continue. There is a broader agreement among the U.S. Establishment that this is the leverage that the United States has, and it hurts the Chinese companies without hurting the U.S. economy that much, because they always can calculate how much sales American companies would lose. So this is a precision instrument. And the U.S. can stick to that for a long time. And as far as China is the factory of the world is concerned, it appears it's not a big deal for a lot of people out there. They think that if China is the factory of the world, so what? Because they work for multinational companies. Multinational companies still control the supply chains. They control the final products. So it's not a big deal. So I think that we're not going to see the continuation of the trade war or tariff war going forward. But the tech war is here to stay, and it will have a big impact on China's development plan. And the Chinese, as I mentioned earlier, Chinese economic development model is OEM. It's like whatever piece in the supply chain can be moved to China, and China can do it cheaper and maybe better for you. So that's been the approach. And that's very different from like Korea and Japan, that they pursue the ODM approach. They never allowed foreign companies like to penetrate so much into their domestic economies. So from that angle, China is being much more open than almost any other economy in the world. But in the last few years, that Chinese government is concerned about losing control. And as you probably know, the political priority in China has changed. It has changed from growth to enhancing control, to take out the vulnerabilities to the system, to ensure that this system is here to stay. So, kind of the economy, footloose economy for such a huge country, of the business is all footloose, and so I think that the government pushed to have Chinese companies to become ODM players. So these guys, basically, what they did is that they latched onto the supply chain and put together the components and competing against established ODM guys like Apple, like Samsung, and so forth. Now the trouble with this approach is that these companies are really skin deep in terms of depth. They're really assembly companies. Unlike Samsung and Apple, they have depth. They maybe the production is in China or in Vietnam. They have a lot of things that other people cannot do. So you cannot shake these companies like Chinese companies. So for Americans, when they first sanctioned the ZTE, and the ZTE just shut down, it was actually a shock to a lot of people in the US. They thought that ZTE was a paper company. You know, they didn't have anything substantive. So I think that this is going to be a trouble that's coming for a long time. Biden does not have strong views. He had a very friendly relationship with China, but I think that he cannot defy the overall establishment, and he would listen, especially to the defense establishment. So the targeted sanctions against Chinese companies will continue. So it's like we have a bunch of companies that have been sanctioned already. based on their relationship with the government, the party, or the military. But in the case of China, because according to the Chinese constitution, everybody must listen to the party. So everything is related. So it's today like people were selling Chinese telecom stocks. And I think Chinese telecom stocks are not really strategic to the country in that way. But it's was to the market thought it was a negative news. But I think much more the U.S. would target ODM players, would target the semiconductor equipment, semiconductor production. So these are things that are really important to China's future. And I always believed that the semiconductor is the equivalent to oil in the 21st century. And when 20 years ago, when Shanghai started all these foundries, I took investors to see them, and people were very optimistic that these foundries in China would take off and maybe become more powerful than TSMC. But the story hasn't turned out that way. I think that shows you the weakness in the system, and also shows that China did not plan to have what's going on now. If they had, they would have focused on these business 20 years ago. And I saw that these businesses struggled for lack of funding, lack of talents, and so forth, and even mismanagement. And the government gave a lukewarm and sometimes erroneous support. So that has become the bottleneck for Chinese economy, the semiconductor production. And it's not an IPR issue. And China was focusing on IPRs, patents. They were rewarding people for getting patents. So a lot of companies kind of invested in getting just patents. And most patents in China got were process-based, not fundamental. And so they don't help the country that much. And they missed the boat on the know-how in production. That's what a semiconductor is about. The know-how is you look at TSMC or Samsung, and know-how is much more important than IPR per se. So this is like the weakness of China's economy. So many people focus on short-term gains, and money poured into they call internet companies technology companies. Actually, they are just businesses using internet as a tool. You look at the internet guys; they don't even know technology. They're just talking heads. But they've been trumpeted as China's representative of technology. That turns out to be a pretty bad deal for the country. Now the government knows that, so they want to pour resources into this. And I've traveled a bit in the country to look at this. I think that it's going to be an uphill struggle. The reason is because that it's not you have the fabrication side, and you also have the equipment side. And the equipment side, the equipment players depend on components. And we're talking about thousands of firms involved in the whole supply chain. And most of those guys depend one way or another on US-based in IPRs. So the US could easily tell them to stop. So China is looking down this thing is like you have to rebuild the whole supply chain from the every little component all the way to like a company like a TSMC or Samsung. I think that's going to be a long process. So this is a kind of my view that China has to accept much slower economic growth going forward. It's because that it's maybe 5G it becomes more difficult to get. but 4G is okay. People are still living on 4G, so why not? That kind of a thing, I think that is likely the scenario. And the government hasn't given a growth target for the next 5-year plan. It's understandable, but China's labor force is shrinking. Capital increase has less and less effect because the investment is so high in the economy. So marginal productivity of investment is relatively small. So quantity expansion is not going to bring us to the same growth as before. So you need productivity. Now with the technology access being blocked, so I think that China really needs to accept that there may be slow growth is likely. But there are ways to improve efficiency domestically. But the main constraint is the political concerns. How whatever economic model could undermine political stability. Okay, so for example, in terms of urbanization, and it's related to property sector, and people have been debating about a property forever. Property like China's property is just gigantic, right? So sales of new properties like 17% of GDP, and the stock of residential properties like equivalent to like 6 or 7 times GDP. These are like numbers just like Japan 30 years ago before in 1992. But the issue is that Chinese government has viewed the property mainly as a tool for raising revenue for the government, and not as a development instrument for increasing productivity. Okay, one thing we know that people want to live in tier 1 cities. So in the last 20 years, why didn't China build more tier 1 cities, right? So that it seems like I think that of course the political system is concerned about the overconcentration of population. So that's why the government has always pushing for township urbanization, and people kind of build a little city next to their village and don't move around. When people move around too much, it feels dangerous. So you know that urbanization has the most economy of scale. If you globally, big cities have much higher per capita income than small cities. So China's urbanization is creating a trap for productivity. So something that China could change, and if you change, you can boost the productivity. But I suspect that it's not really going to happen. The issue is how China is going to live with the world. Okay, now 20 years ago I had a vision that China could not have a hard border with the world because China is so huge. If you have a hard border, you're going to lead to like a conflict. Now, for a big country, internal matters have global implications. So whatever you do at home, you must think about how the world is going to respond. And so 20 years ago, I suggested China should build mega cities. That 80 to 90% of people in these mega cities, and these mega cities could run the economies kind of pretty freely, like Hong Kong, Singapore, and they are going to attract international talents or workers from everywhere. So you're not going to have a hard border between China and the rest of the world. So maybe China and the world can live harmoniously together. Now, obviously, that is we're going. Most people in the government disagree with that. Is that too much internationalization is destabilizing. So it's hard to argue which side is more right. I think that the hard border is inevitably leading to more and more conflicts. Okay, on the China's economic model, it's not just the volume quantity. China is so big, so it changes relative prices in the world, like between IPR and blue collar worker in wages in the Midwest in the United States. So you on the one side you have somebody like affiliated with Google and Facebook getting very rich, and on the other side you have people in the Midwest. They get their wages go down. They used to work in factories, now they work for Starbucks or McDonald's. So that is I think that this one aspect that people already understand quite a bit. The other aspect is that China is determined to keep a low cost, to maintain low cost. Chinese per capita income is $10,000 after 4 decades of economic development. That's about 1/5 of the average level in OECD countries. You look at Japan, after 40 years, was on par, and in Taiwan, Korea, over half. So why China is so low? I think that it's just a political economic structure. The government wants to maintain low cost approach because it's OEM. Your people are going to move if you increase cost. So when the labor shortage, how are you going to increase? How are you going to maintain low cost? So they have this gigantic property bubble, and whatever people make money, when they make money, the money goes into the property sector, and the property money goes to the government, and the government uses that money to expand the capacity. Then you have overcapacity. Then you have price downward pressure on prices. So then government has to support companies to sell, to price to sell. So this model is basically a subsidy model, and without the people knowing, they are subsidizing everything. So so for a country that is already has a world-class infrastructure, and the people on average, are as well educated as in developed economies, you have this kind of level of cost. The global impact is humongous. And for these multinational companies, as long as China stays as the factory of the world, they like it because it means that their profit margin goes higher and higher. So that's part of the reason why the asset market has been booming, because there has been redistribution between labor and capital. So this is the reason for that. The other is that something I've been talking about is the bubble story. China's economic model essentially is keeping inflation down. So Western central banks, they think that inflation is low because of insufficient demand. So what you should do, you should stimulate to create demand. But they're pushing on string because in a globalized economy, China is the benchmark in terms of cost. And despite what Trump did, very few people would move factory back to the Midwest. It's just unrealistic. So this is what has been going on. Is basically, despite labor shortage in China, global inflation has been really low because of China's economic model. So this also explains. You look at what the Fed is doing. Last September, they bail out of the repo market with the QE2. Now, during the pandemic, they introduced a 2.3 trillion QE3. But you look at the dollar is holding up okay, and the inflation is relatively low. So the reason is because Chinese currency is pegged to the dollar. So the global inflation story is really Chinese currency, the level vis-a-vis the US dollar. As long as China has this pegged exchange rate, sometimes people say, "Oh, Chinese currency is overvalued because they cannot sell exports." But actually, it's a question of overinvestment. So Chinese currency is grossly undervalued based on where China is today in terms of productivity. So this is the reason that China's political system is maintaining this equilibrium that the economists think is just unsustainable, right? So, but that's the uniqueness of China. So as long as China keeps this system, you're going to see Western labor market, this increasing inequality and bubbles will continue. That's what's going on. So every crash is a buying opportunity. Every sell-off is a buying opportunity. So in this world, bad news is a buying opportunity. Good news is a selling opportunity. So that thing is like now what's going on, with Biden and everything. You may hear some good news. Maybe it's bad for the stock market. So this is what I see. The fundamental thing going on, and in terms of the economy, I think that 20 years ago, I thought the Fed didn't have a clue about what they were doing, and Greenspan was staring at the statistics, saying, "Where's the inflation? Where's the inflation?" If China doesn't change, the Western central banks could do is to crash their own economies to force China to change. But I doubt that they would do that, right? So we are in this kind of crazy equilibrium path. In terms of now China, so going forward from the economic side, the financial side, I said that the good news is buying up. Good news is selling. Bad news is buying, and the economy will slow down somewhat, and central banks will continue to talk about what more can we do. Okay, so that's kind of a world we are in. But going forward is like I think there are other shocks is on the power struggle side, and we see that there's a broad consensus among Anglo-Saxon countries, so-called Five Eyes. They think that they need to confront China. They need to they should put strategic interest above economic interest. So that for China is like a big risk. You look at Chinese, Beijing believes in the power of money. They think that the countries that depend on China should support China. Okay, so what's going on now is very unsettling. So that is why the government is determined to set Australia as an example for people who are taking sides without thinking about the economic cost. Okay, so I see that China will go all the way. Because the government Chinese government has so much flexibility at home. No, if we don't drink Australian wine, so what? No, there are plenty of Australian wines made in Henan province, so people can drink that. So what? They can't tell the difference anyway. So beef like pork too expensive. Eat chicken, maybe fish. So the government can basically make choices for 1.4 billion people. So that's why it's got so much flexibility in terms of punishing a country like Australia. What I see is that going forward, the iron ore, which is the main thing for Australia, when China finds alternatives like in Africa or in some other countries, they will stop importing Australian iron ore. It's not about forcing Australia to buckle. It's about making other countries think twice before to pick sides. So China will go all the way. So this is a source of instability. I think going forward, you should not expect compromise when something happens. You have to assume both sides will go to the extreme. Okay, the most extreme outcome is likely the correct outcome. Okay, so countries like Australia, will be in big trouble. I think that you look at the Australian dollar and Australian asset markets in general, will be in deep trouble. So they're talking about diversification. I doubt that there's another China around the corner. It's very, very unlikely. I think this will have a big impact on Southeast Asian countries, which is what China really wants. Southeast Asian countries also have big ties in terms of trade and investment vis-a-vis China. And for China, this is really important that Southeast Asia does not pick sides. If they are not on China's side, at least they don't pick sides. So the Chinese government is prepared for more and more intense confrontation between the United States and China. So they will put up all the pieces together to make sure that the countries either support China or don't pick sides. So that's what I see. So it's a source of tension. Biden is talking about working with allies, mainly Europe and Japan. And in that regard, actually, Beijing was prepared for that a long time ago. You look at the automobile market; it's really a foreign policy tool to tie down Japan and Germany, especially Germany. Now, German Volkswagen sells 4.5 million cars in China, and less than 10% in the United States. And German car companies, in my view, not that kind. They survive depends on China. The German government made a decision to go for it. So the electrification that the German car companies are doing, it all depends on Chinese government promising to change the Chinese auto market, and so you can sell electric cars in China. So we're talking about tens of billions of dollars being poured into this. The demand elsewhere is going to be tiny. It doesn't make economic sense. So I see that what the Europeans are going to do is that they say, oh, we talk about human rights, and we go to Beijing and say, oh, you arrest somebody. Can I get that guy to Germany? And after Chinese government struggle, maybe kind of no. Then they say yes. Then the guy will go back to Europe and say, hey, we have a big victory. So I think that's kind of a thing we're talking about. And you look at Japan, it's Toyota and Honda are really tied down in China. Even though Abe government was pretty anti-China, but they've been silent because they see what's going on. So I think that because China has this leverage, so I don't see this Biden would be able to put together a broad alliance easily. So that means it's going to be a protracted process. The only instrument that they will be keep using is targeted technology sanction against the Chinese ODM players, and other things will remain talk for the foreseeable future. So for Beijing, it's like a day buying time. They got a few more years, possibly during the whole Biden term, 4 years. Is 4 years enough? I'm not sure, but that's Chinese approach. You get through the day and see what happens tomorrow. You never know. Like they kept talking to Trump, and then Trump was gone. But I know maybe Trump will come back in 2024 because this comes to the ultimate test for stability. That we have this bubble approach for keeping the global economy afloat during this huge and widening imbalance. Okay, the Fed is pumping up basically the U.S. stock market and the credit market in the back. Maybe in terms of value appreciation is not as huge, but actually it's humongous. So many players like in the credit market, they all trying to leverage up to get a little bit more on these spreads. So that is driving the stock market up. Okay, and the cheap funding and the companies buying back stocks. So whatever the Fed does, the money tends to flow from the credit market into the stock market very quickly. But that is not as stable as Chinese bubble. China is basically, the world has two huge bubbles. China's property bubble and the US stock market bubble. U.S. stock market bubble is about $40 trillion. Chinese property bubble is probably $100 trillion. Okay, kind of it's mind-boggling to imagine what $100 trillion means, right? So, but as I mentioned earlier, Chinese property bubble is not for consumption. It's just the Chinese government taking money away from the people to subsidize their investment. Okay, so it's the government-owned financial system that can keep it going. Yeah. So and also the Chinese government has another instrument that people don't have, is that they can control the media. So when people are bearish, they can cook up all kinds of stories to make people bullish. Chinese people are very gullible. So they don't, numbers are not reliable anyway. Usually people don't look at numbers; they just hear stories, right? So if you spread enough stories about something going up, people are going to show up. So the Chinese government has been able to manage this property thing for since 2006, when the banking system started these land sales, and through land sales to inject money into cities that are not competitive for attracting money. And you create these kind of capital gains to show profits, and more money follow. And so all these little cities that are not competitive, but they've been having this money gain going on for a long time. And it's all fine for the government as long as they get money to build roads, subways, and factories. So and as long as China's exports are big and exports are increasing, they get more liquidity. So because China has only one book, it's the government's book. All the financial institutions, really, they belong to one entity, okay? So the overall liquidity is really about the balance of payment. So I think the Chinese balance of payment has a big surplus. I'm not sure how the numbers are booked. I think that it's a huge surplus. So for the government, there's no liquidity problem. There's a confidence issue, which they can fix through controlling media reporting, spreading stories. There are hundreds of thousands of these 50-cent internet soldiers who come up with such stories. But the U.S. market is less stable because the money leaks out into consumption. Okay, so when you leak into consumption, the bubble is less stable, and this is why the Fed has had to bail out the market so many times. The bigger one, of course, was 2008. It was a huge one, like $4 trillion bailing out the market. Then this one is like $2.3 trillion, also very big. So you put everything together, we're talking about the Fed has spent close to half of GDP in terms of supporting the bubble. And the Fed can rescue the bubble because the dollar is a reserve currency. And people cannot. As our Chinese currency is tied to the dollar doesn't crash. So the monetary expansion does not lead to inflation. Inflation comes only when the currency goes down, like in the 1970s, when the U.S. dollar against gold from $36 to like 1,000. So that led to inflation. So China is holding down the U.S. inflation through this pegged exchange rate. So this is why they've been able to being able to rescue this bubble again, but it's certainly less stable than China's. When Chinese bubble deflates, you don't even know because the numbers don't show. The numbers always show gradual increase. So that's sort of I see what's going on. So this is a tale of two bubbles, and who blows up first. And both Washington and Beijing have a common interest in that regard. But would Biden or his people understand that? And would the Republicans want to support this? Because if the bubble blows up, Biden is a one-term president, and Trump will come back. And the Republican Party is a party of Trump fans. It's not a political organization anymore. It's just like fans. They're loyal to Trump no matter what. So Trump, over the next 4 years, Trump will have these huge rallies every week and talking about the stolen election and how they're going to come back in 2024. That'll be his life. So the Republican Party, all these business friendly people will more and more will leave. So this is a party. This is a party of rednecks. These are the people who this is workers' party. These are the people who elected FDR in 1932. So ironically, it's led by a rich property tycoon, but it's a workers' party. So this is the way I see that the U.S. politics is not like Biden has a lot of flexibility in terms of dealing with China, because Trump will be out there calling Biden Beijing Biden. So for the next 4 years, so he has to be really careful. So this is sort of a story that I think that in terms of the long term, let me see some. No, there are risk on, risk off this thing, and the extremes like cryptocurrency, all those things. I think that what's going on is extreme. It's because central banks are pumping money like that. So a lot of crazy stuff is happening. So the crazy stuff that goes up more than anything else. So that's what's going on with the cryptocurrency or internet companies, stuff like that. So you look at all these EV companies, electric vehicle companies. This is a niche market, like under 2%. And maybe technology will improve, but right now this is like a toy market, because the EV is not competitive against traditional automobile cars, like hybrid cars that are even more friendly to the environment than these EV companies, because they overall pollution is less if you have a good hybrid car. So this is a restricted bubble. A lot of companies that don't sell cars already are valued at higher than the established auto companies that have been around for 100 years. So I have known quite a few people who are pumped in these stocks. They don't even have sales. Now I see the shops around here in Shanghai. They never sell anything. Nobody ever shows up. The shops are totally empty. But the stocks are flying. So people who are overly concerned are going to make money in this stock market. This market is not for people who are rational. This is a market for people who like crazy people, and as long as there are enough crazy people around, and it goes up. So if you want to make money, you spot the gathering of crazy people somewhere. If you see enough people, it's going up. So it reverses only when the Fed changes to a guy like Paul Volcker, which I don't see. You see, Jerome Powell is really not an economist. I don't know why he's there. He doesn't know what's going on. The last Fed governor who knew what was going on was Bernanke, and Bernanke checked out quickly. He didn't want to go on with this thing. So I don't see how this thing, this speculation thing. But overall, I think that sell on good news, buy on bad news. That approach still works. Okay, what's now is that we are having good news piling up, like a vaccine, like Biden win. Maybe we're talking about compromise. China is going to float something like more details on climate control that will get the left wing of the Democrat Party on the Beijing side by some time. So there will be a lot of stuff like that to make you feel better. But I'm not sure that and I think that Beijing is just buying time. Beijing is determined to create an alternative universe, which was not the case until 5 or 6 years ago. Nobody imagined that. Right now, because of the chaos in the West, so and I think that Beijing has a lot more confidence that they could do something like that, and maybe taking most emerging economies with China, because emerging economies need investment. They need a cheap investment. Only China can make investment happen at a low price. You look at Chinese subway construction, maybe we're talking about $30 million per kilometer. You go to any Western country, it's at least 10 times, right? And you look at a highway, maybe it's $20 million per kilometer. You know, it's the same thing where in any developed economy, it's 10 times. So China, by keeping workers' wages low through this political system, China can just replicate what has been done in China as elsewhere. So that is a very powerful weapon. And the digital surveillance state is really, really powerful. You know, if my screen turns dark now, you know, it's over because somebody just doesn't like me anymore. So, you know, like in Bangkok, you know, if the king is desperate enough, he will just import China's system. Then no more demonstrations. So the I think that China maybe 5 years ago was hesitant, was just thinking about how we're going to keep this system. The system is working okay. Why should we change? We'd like to be in charge, right? So now I think it's much more confidence there that actually this is a viable alternative, especially for lots of emerging economies. And if you have no demonstrations and people have to work, the economy doesn't improve in the short term. And going forward, I think China is not the Soviet Union. There are a lot of people in the West don't understand yet. The Soviet Union was they could have developed their own technologies, but they are not commercial. Chinese are extremely commercial, and even the government is commercial. So when technology comes to China, it's going to leverage it to the most potential, like Alibaba, Tencent. They leverage this up all the way up to finance. So because there's more money in the stock market, they look at that. Okay, so whatever they do with the real business, it's trying to create something to make the stock market happy. That's where the money is. See, now politics, of course, interferes, right? So you look at what's going on with the anti-financial. This thing is going to be gone for a long time. So anybody who thinks that the payment system, China's payment system, could be controlled by a private company, I think something's wrong here. So if it's not controlled by the government on surface, it has to be controlled really in substance, right? So that's how it works here. So any kind of money sometimes makes people crazy, right? So some people who have had a lot of money, they think that they're somebody. In China's system, the new system is that it's not a private property-based system. Okay, wealth is temporary. You hold wealth at the goodwill of the party. When the party doesn't like you, you're supposed to happily give the wealth back and thank the party for the opportunity. Okay, so that is in 2,000 years in China, everything is owned by the emperor. Everybody else has only the right of usage. Like the property in China today, we have 70 years. When it's up, who knows, right? So people who the people who think that China is going to change, it's not going to change. It's only going to go further than what the trend that you have seen in the last 2 to 3 years. You can extrapolate. So thinking that there will be pushback, somebody will change their mind. It's not like that. Because I think the leadership is switching from like let's get rich to like let's build the wall. So when you build the wall, the Great Wall psychology comes back. You worry about, can you survive? So when this China-U.S. trade war started, and a lot of people say, we're going to win. Why? Because we can eat bugs. Americans need a lot of food. We don't. So even if we starve, we're still around. The Chinese survival capability is just incredible, right? You know, this country doesn't have a lot of resources, but a lot of people. It tells you that people can survive. So this is we are in the survival mode. Okay, so that's why there are a lot of attention to food, not wasting food, stocking, stocking up inventories, and stocking up oil, and so forth. Okay, so this is the bottom line. So don't imagine that somehow China will say, "Hey, we made a mistake. We like what you are saying. I want what do you have. Let's kumbaya again." It's extremely unlikely. Okay, so this knife and edge thing going forward, like for financial markets, like you have bonds, somebody throwing bonds into the financial market from time to time. It's inevitable. On the other hand, the financial system in China is controlled by the government. They always can stir fry, even like private companies. When the government thinks it's good to stir fry some stock, make it go up, because it makes the country look strong, look good. It will happen. A lot of internet stocks are like that. So a lot of funds, insurance companies, and so forth, and they need instruction from somebody to tell them, "Hey, I like something. You all buy in." So a lot of opportunities really are associated with political decisions. So you have to be in the know. Tons of people have become rich in China because of that. The system likes some people get rich as long as you are with me, so it's okay to get rich. But if I don't know you, it's dangerous. If you get rich, what are you going to do with your money? So I think that that is kind of where we are. I think that so now there's a question about RMB. Chinese exchange rate is not market based. It's a political consideration. So so I see that there's a bit of a kind of a weighted currency weighted average. Going on. The dollar came down. The dollar index came down about 10% from the recent peak, and the Chinese currency appreciated by a little bit less than that. So there is something going on. So they are looking at the weighted average of some currencies, but it's still mainly the dollar story. I think that the balance of payment is mushroom. A lot of dollars coming to China, and there's pressure for the currency to go up. I don't know, for China, I don't have to let it go up. I can take the dollars today and hide it somewhere. So what, right? So I think it's still RMB story is still dollar index story. It's not really RMB story. China is determined to stick to peg the RMB to the dollar. That is the way. Because Americans like cheap goods. Black Friday is coming. They like cheap goods. So China wants to make cheap goods available. So that's how you cannot kick China out. So that is why the currency is unlikely to go up much anytime soon. The maximum is the dollar index depreciation. The other side of Chinese RMB appreciation. Let me check some other questions here. Well, HK property, obviously, HK property is more like a Chinese property now, because the media is like, they kind of like Chinese media outlets. Okay, they try to tell you good stories. So it's a different story. It's holding up. It's going down, but it's holding up and at a low volume. So it's not 1997 because the interbank market just interest rate popped. So the property market would go because of the interest rate. But right now, interest rate close to zero, and if somebody coming to short the Hong Kong dollar like in 1998, some of the people I knew that they were doing that at that time. No, China didn't have a lot of foreign exchange reserves, but they still were determined to defend the peg. Right now, China has got like trillions. So their be happy to fight you. So anybody who wants to bring down the Hong Kong dollar will get a bloody nose, and Beijing likes that. So I think that's why when interest rate is very low, so then it becomes a story about stories. People telling stories, right? Some people want to leave. A lot of people say they don't have anywhere to go. Then they say supply is small. So people get confused. People get confused. That's what the government wants. They don't want people to get confused. And nobody can give you the truth. Nobody can get it right. Financial views, market views are all entertainment. And he says here, then they put another guy over here. They have very different views. It's kind of like a reality show, reality television. No, it's all entertainment. So in the end, you never know. So you better listen to the government. So that's I think that why the property market is more resilient than I expect. But the Hong Kong property market is going down. I think that because unlike China, Hong Kong property market, people can take money out, right? So there is some liquidity outflow going on. People can take advantage of this, and also some people will immigrate, and this market is relatively small in terms of new supply. So if there are 10,000 or a few thousand people who want to immigrate, it will have a big impact on the market. So it's not like China, right? China, we're talking about in Shanghai, we have maybe 1 billion square meters. At the $10,000 per square meter, the value is $10 trillion. So Shanghai is $10 trillion. It's 50% higher than the whole Japan. So this is the property bubble. You guys know it's about in outlying areas. It's not about city center like Manhattan is very expensive. Some penthouse sold for $100 million. That doesn't matter because it's small volume. It's really you go out of the center because then it becomes a really big area. Then you go to Qingpu in Shanghai, it's like $50,000 per square meter. So you're talking about the averages. Qingpu is not in Shanghai. So it takes forever to get inside. So that's the game. So the Chinese government can manipulate that. Right now the property market in last month appeared to be pretty robust because every story it can be spin, right? When people are worried about not being able to take money out because the capital control has really tightened. So the story is that, okay, the government will inflate with the money. So you better buy a property. At least it's there. So in the last few months, the property market has been revived on that story. So negative story can be spun to support this market. So, but I think Hong Kong is a little bit different. Hong Kong will on the way down, but it's not a crash like in 1998 because there's no high interest rate to push. Okay, so this thing happens only when people who leave, who immigrate. So it's a grinding, slow process. Now I check. Let me check more questions. Okay, so no, I want to end this thing is like China is a one-man show. Okay, so don't think too much. Okay, you don't think too much. This is where we are, and for better or worse, we're stuck, and that's the kind of world we're in. So you can, like Ant Financial. To begin with, I don't know how to make money, right? How ever will make money? The issue is trust products, like a trust company, like a shadow bank. I don't know, but obviously they ramped up the sentiment. Now it's popped. So something like this is going to happen again. Without the political correctness, finance doesn't matter. It's nothing, nada. So before 40 years ago, people watched news on television and read People's Daily every day. That they would tell you what would happen, right? So we're pretty much back to what it was like then. So I suggested that you put on Chinese television, Chinese channels at home. you watch 新闻联播 every day. That will tell you a lot about where financial markets are going. I think that my time is up. I will stop here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hope I can see you guys very soon.